welcome back to OffSctipt. I'm Cookie. I've got Righty with me as well today. Hopefully you're really enjoying these podcasts so far. If you are, give us a bit of support, share them around with your friends. Let's see how many people we can get watching these lovely podcasts. As I mentioned, I'm with the East Coast Iniesta. Mr. Lewis Wright, how are you, Righty?
Brilliant today, mate. Excited about this episode.
Fantastic. So am I. Do you want to introduce our guest today?
Yeah, well, from a coaching standpoint, he's a legend in my eyes. He knows that. At Boston, he was known as Captain Chaos. He's ex-Pilgrims youth team and first team manager, and currently at Doncaster Rovers. It's Mr. Steve Welsh. How are you, Steve?
Very well, guys. Yourselves?
Oh, fantastic. Well up for this episode today. So, how's life, Steve? How's the lockdown treated you apart from the hair?
Apart from the hair. All right, Lou. Yeah, fine. We've operating as my particular role. I can't be furloughed. I'm separately funded for my particular role. So right. I've been working all the way through, really. So it's not a great deal of change for me, apart from the fact that the schoolboys programme has had to sort of pause, obviously, because of lockdown. But the under-18s they've been in training every day, doing their education and playing the league games. So that's fine. But with this week, actually, just Monday, we started back with the young ones. So hopefully we're back and we're going to stay back now to the end of the season. So fingers crossed. Good.
Yeah, hopefully a bit of normality to continue throughout. So no, it's good that you've been obviously keeping busy within your role. Obviously, it was quite important that we got you on OffSctipt. As we spoke off camera, there's a few boys always mentioning you and a few of your methods, which we'll touch on. So Steve's here today, Cookie, to set people straight on his certain old school methods. So we'll see what comes up later. So like we do on OffSctipt, Steve, we're going to cover the pathway. We're going to touch on your pro career, coaching career, the Boston United days. And then I bet you've got a juicy 1 to 11 with some of the players you've played against coming up in a bit. If Loudrup isn't on that, it is a travesty. It is a travesty. So, pathway. So, what age did you start playing up in Scotland?
I guess I'm no different to the lads you've had on before. You know, lads are kicking a ball about since they were 5 or 6 years of age.
Yeah.
No different for me, really. I don't think you just kicking a ball about in the street with your pals. It just so happens that one of the guys, one of the neighbours, I think, was running a football team and said, "Listen, do you want to come and join the local boys club?" I think I must have been about 9-year-old. We didn't start playing till about under 10s. Just joined the local boys club, Creighton Boys Club. Played with them for a couple of years, and then played with the school team and stuff like that. And back in them days, we used to always play on a Saturday, right? Never played on a Sunday. It was always a Saturday fixture. So, you go and you play football in the morning. If you could sneak up and watch a football match in the afternoon, you're a bit older, you would do if you could. No money. So you're trying to skip over the fence or skip over the wall, or somebody to throw you over the turnstile. So it was great. It's great times, really. And I got to about 13, I think 13 or 14, and I must have played in a game, and I got a letter from St Mirren Football Club inviting me to a trial, and I went along to St Mirren, managed to be successful in the trial. I think it was one of my teachers, actually. I think it was one of my teachers had recommended me.
Right.
A colleague of his, or a friend of his, was coaching at St Mirren at the time, and I think they phoned up, and it was the guy who was my coach at St Mirren was a teacher at another school. And the invitation came across, got a long trial, and everything went well. So about 14 onwards, I was with St Mirren for a few years. And then it got to the stage where you got to make decisions, you get apprenticeships, as it was back then. And we had a good side. We had a really good side at under sort of 16s. A couple of lads that went down to Leeds and Ipswich on trial. And nothing happened. None of us got took on with St Mirren at all. So we all just kind of fell away, really.
Up in Scotland, Steve, does like playing for a St Mirren, do you still get like the Rangers? I shouldn't say that in your presence, I know that, but obviously Celtic, do they come in and have a look, or were they sort of teams which was looking further afield than Scotland?
you play. I mean, obviously, you're playing the Celtic and the Rangers and the Dundee Uniteds when you're younger, but Celtic and Rangers were always that bit better. They were always that bit better. They just had the pick of the kids, really. Although in saying that, Dundee United always had a very strong youth setup. And then if you went through to Edinburgh and played the Hibs and the Hearts, again, they had sort of strong connections with it. They could pull guys in for Fife and Berwick and places like that, the borders to train. Whereas you went to Celtic and Rangers, most of the kids were sort of Greater Glasgow area, down into Ayrshire and things like that. But it was really good. It was great. I mean, you got a couple of doings when you played Rangers and Celtic sometimes, but it was great. I mean, but out of that team I played with at 16s, I was really quite surprised that one or two guys never got something. Do you know what I mean? But that's what it is.
Was it like what we know as a centre of excellence then at St Mirren, or was it just a normal sort of, I don't know, like community team as such? Or
it was a little bit like that, Lou. It was a little bit. We played in what they called the youth league, not youth professional league, because you weren't professional, but youth amateur league or whatever it's called. But the Celtic and the Rangers were in it, and but it was we trained once a week. You maybe train once. Maybe, I mean, you're a bit older. We trained twice a week and played on a Saturday. But you're playing for the school. I'd play for the school on a Saturday morning, and then rush home, get changed, put my shirt and tie on, and then go out and play for St Mirren in the afternoon.
Right.
So on a Saturday, you're playing 2 games of football. By that time, you weren't going. The only time I got to watch Celtic play was midweek.
I pick up on something very professional, shirt and tie. It was that sort of standard for.
At St Mirren it was. You had to turn up with a shirt and tie and all that, and so the time you're literally going through 1 game of football in the morning, get home, quick change, get in the bus. Can you like getting the bus up to Paisley, getting to meet and then go and play the game, and it was good because we used to the game we used to play. Our home pitch was literally around the corner for the old Love Street. And if the game finished early, we'd all try and get changed quickly and nick in and try and catch maybe the last 15, 20 minutes of the St Mirren game, whoever they were playing. So that was good fun. But it got to the stage where, listen, you've got to remember, Lou, a different generation. When I left school back then, there was 3.5 million people unemployed in this country. Right, and you were just desperate to get a job somewhere, right? And I didn't want to stay on at school. I wanted an apprenticeship. I wanted to join. I wanted an apprenticeship, and for love and money, I couldn't get it. But so you had to make decisions.
Oh, decent. So you mentioned you played for school. Did you have get picked for the county? Do they have that up in Scotland, or is it a little bit different? Obviously, England to Scotland, and also, was you always a defender? Was it always defender for you?
I was always a flank. No, actually, when I was in primary school, I was quite quick, I think. So they used to stick me up front, and I scored a load of goals at primary school. But the all centre forwards go back and end up playing at the back. The time I was 13, I was well and truly at the back. My good fortune was, Lou, I was left-footed, right? Yeah. And when you're left-footed, you always seem to. More opportunities were presented to me, I think, than others because I was naturally left-footed. So even now, when you look for kids now, when you're looking at and you're watching kids coaching, you're watching games, to see a natural left-footed player is still quite an oddity, right? It's still quite they do stick out well. They do stick out like sore thumbs, and you can see we maybe at Doncaster we maybe chasing, say, a left back or a left winger, but you probably find that there's 2 or 3 clubs chasing the same player because that is quite a difficult. It's unusual, right?
It always, for me, a left-footed player, everything looks technically better as well. I don't know what it is. If they strike a ball, it looks so much sweeter than somebody right-footed doing it. I think it's just because it's, like as you say, it's a bit different. It's a bit of an oddity.
I think I must have been one of the few exceptions to that rule.
Did anyone come in for you when you was at St Mirren? Did you have any offers, or was it just St Mirren until you made that decision about wanting an apprenticeship?
Right. Just no. The answer is no. Technically, I had another year. We had the way the Scottish school system worked, that you had You do your what you would call GCSEs down here. We call them O levels, and then you do what they call a 1 year higher, right? Which I guess you guys would call an AS level, right? And that would then qualify you for university if you wanted, right? Or you could stay on and do what they call a 6 year study, which I guess is equivalent to your A level, and that could take you into again onto university. So I got to the stage where St Mirren weren't offering me anything, and the manager at St Mirren, the actual manager, he said, "Listen, I want to keep you boys as a group together. If you're going to stay on at school, we'll keep the name. St Mirren allowed us to keep the name, and we just played in a different league, right? And so what St Mirren, the deal was that St Mirren would, if they felt that there was any improvement, they would come back and look at us. I don't think they ever did, right? But we were allowed to go and play as a group, so we played for another year, and that's the year that I decided that my future lay elsewhere. And bizarrely enough, just before, literally days before I made the decision to where I was going to go, I had a knock at the door, and it was Clydebank Football Club. Now, Clydebank Football Club means nothing to people nowadays. Back then, Clydebank were in the Scottish Premier League, or the top flight of Scottish football. And then my parents gave me a decision. They gave me the weekend to make a decision what I was going to do, pretty much for the rest of my life, if I'm being honest with you.
Yeah. I'm guessing that decision is to probably go and join the army.
That's
was
right.
it?
That's right. Yeah, that's right.
So, so you end up making the decision and going to join the British Army. Obviously, big decision, I suppose. Now, knowing what I know, what you've just said, you've got Clydebank, you've got the army. What swayed you towards the army?
It's a good question. That when you're growing up and all you want to do is play football, and you think your time's passed you by a wee bit, and then literally I'm joining the army on the Tuesday morning, Thursday afternoon, Thursday evening, we get a knock at the door, and it's two guys for Clydebank. They said, "Listen, we've seen you play with St Mirren, blah blah blah. We'd like to offer you what they called it a youth professional at the time." And what it meant is you'd go in and you would train and clean boots and all that sort of stuff, and play. First team would play on a Saturday at home. You'd play away against. So if you're playing Celtic, Clydebank were playing Celtic at home, you would play against Celtic away from home in the kind of B fixture or youth fixture or whatever it was. And so I sat down and they said, "Yeah," I said, "Listen, I'm joining the army. When are you joining?" Tuesday. So they said, "Listen, it's up to you. It's up to you what you want to do." So my mum and dad sat me down, I think, and said, "Listen, we'll give you the weekend. By Sunday, we want an answer." So I'd all weekend, I'm chatting to my mates and what you doing, and I sat. By this time, I'd already had the going away party and all that, so I'm going to the army, right? So the family's all been round and we've got loads of goodies and all that, you know, and to take away with you. So, but I sat down with my mum on the Sunday night and she says, "What you doing?" I think they both expected me to say, "Listen, I'm going to Clydebank." And she says, "No, I'm joining the army." And they kind of said, "Why?" I says, "The application for the army started in September, right while I went back to school for a year. And I started that application, and we're sort of 9 months down the road, and my answer to my mum was, "Well, where were Clydebank 9 months ago, right? You know, where were they last year, right?" So I kind of committed myself to the army. I'd got my head around that I was going there, and that was it. So that was
What did you go in doing? What was the?
I joined. Yeah, in fact, I've got one here on this, Royal Signals. I've joined the Royal Signals. Got myself I wanted a trade. And become a technician in the Royal Signals. I know that I actually done any of the job. That when I actually get in there, it was I done nothing but. Anyway, that's another story. I've done other things, but I passed my trade just. But after that, I never done any of my trade at all. I was too busy doing football and other things, really. So. If I'm being honest with you, Lou, when I joined, it was like a hand in a glove. It was perfect for me. I just needed it. And that sounds a bit over dramatic, but when you're 16, 17-year-old, you just need somebody sometimes to put an arm around you and go, "Listen, you're wanted," right? Yeah. And you had a couple of knockbacks with football clubs, and maybe your confidence was moving over as it is. And all of a sudden, I went to the recruiting. I'll never forget. I failed an interview with British Gas. I'm walking down the street and I've got my shirt and tie on, and it's about August time, September, and I'm walking down Queen Street in Glasgow. And at them days, the Army, Navy, and Air Force had 3 different recruiting offices. So you went into one after the other. And the Army, the Navy and the RAF said to me, "Oh, come back in a year, get your higher results and come back and see us." And I walked into the Army. The guy looked at me, sat me down, gave me a cup of tea, a couple of biscuits, and said,
Oh, sold.
"What do you want, son? What do you want?" And it was as if that's what I needed at the time. When I look back at it now, at the time I would say no. But when I look back at it, I just needed somebody to go, "Come on, you're wanted here," and that was it. And when
knowing you though, Steve, cup of tea and a biscuit sells it to you anyway, doesn't
it? Cheap date.
Oh, cool. Good standard of football in the Army, would you say? Good standard?
Very good. Very fortunate, Lou. Very fortunate. You do all your basic training, but eventually when you go on, I was fortunate enough, I was playing I made my full Army debut at 18. I made my full combined services debut. So I'd played for the Army Youth, the Army Combined Services Youth, Army Senior Team by 18, Combined Services Team by 19. And I think at the time, I stand to be corrected here, at the time, I think I was the youngest player in the forces to do that.
Right.
So I'd made my Combined Services debut at 19. So the rest, without realising it at the time, when I look back now, if I'd stayed in the Army, my whole career would have been, there'd have been guys going to all different parts of the world. My postings would have been dictated by my football, right? So they would want you close to the football centre. So that was bam. Listen, I'd done it for 5.5 years. I joined the Army, and I had 5.5, some of the best years of my life. Brilliant.
Yeah, just a quick one. We've heard so many so far that are saying they've got to make that important decision at that age. Is it important that you made that decision? Like, I know your parents said you've got until Sunday. Is it important that you made that decision by yourself, other than other people telling you what you're going to do?
Yeah, I think Cookie, that's a great point. And this is what we try to do with the younger kids at our place. If things don't work out for them, we try and present them options, right? Rather than tell them what to do, you present them various options, and then up to them to make that decision, because then you're empowering them, right? Or my mum and dad said, "Listen, make a decision, make a choice, it's yours, stand or fall by it." And I think that's really, really important, because then you can then take ownership of that a wee bit, right? You turn and say, "Right, no, I'm leaving home, packing my bags, gone, next stage of my life." And and we do that with the young kids at Doncaster. We've just had some really difficult conversations with the second years who are not getting pros, and the under 16s who are not getting scholarships. So what you say, listen, there's no good way to give bad news, but you say, listen, these are the options that are open to you. And the options that are open to some of these kids now are incredible compared to my day, right? So they can go off to America, then go to university, they can go and do this, they can go and do all sorts of. Lou, you've seen it at Boston.
Yeah.
We've seen guys, I can tell you now, a lad who used to play for us at Boston is now assistant head coach at Virginia State University. Right? So incredible, right? And he's only in his mid-20s. So yeah, Cookie, it's a great point. You take ownership, and it's up to you. And if you fail, you fail, right? But you just dust yourself off and go on with it, and just get on with life.
Awesome. No, it's a good bit of advice as well. at least there's an exit route. It was obviously back in the day, it was probably more a bit cutthroat. If you didn't, you had to move on to something else. There is other avenues to explore. So you served in the Army. How did it come about you becoming a pro footballer? Where was the link there? Because I've got it down here. You played for a team called Wimborne Town. Was that a very brief spell?
Yeah,
I'm guessing.
I was playing for the Combined Services, and it just so happened that the coach of the Combined Service was a guy, Chris Brady, Commander Brady. He was the coach at a team called Fareham Town near Portsmouth,
right?
Non-league. So I get invited down to play for them. So I'd be playing for the Army and Combined Services during the week, but on a Saturday I went to earn a bit of pocket money, going and playing non-league football. So by the time I was 19, I'm playing, I guess it's Conference North or Conference South, what the first team are in,
Yeah.
the first team are in at the minute. I'm playing that at 19 years of age, and as it was, I'd done that for a couple. I went for they then moved to Basingstoke, and I followed them to Basingstoke Town, and I had a season and a half at Basingstoke. But I was coming up from so I had some exams coming up, trade exams, and my boss pulled me in at work and he said, "Listen, something's going to have to give here. You're going to have to cut back on something, whether it's." And I'm not allowed to cut back your military football, so I'm going to have to cut back your civilian football. So there was a team down the road, Wimborne Town. They were literally 10 miles down the road to the barracks, and they phoned me up, or they get in touch with me and said, "Listen, would you like to come and play here? You don't have to travel to away games. You just play Saturday. You don't have to train. Just turn up on a Saturday and play." And I went, "Aye, all right." And I literally went, and I might have played half a season for Wimborne before I came out of the army. And I play home games and the odd away game and things like that.
Did an offer come in after the Wimborne? Did you get picked up from Wimborne?
I was playing for Wimborne. I was obviously playing for the army and the combined services. And it just so happens that I was playing for the army one evening at Dagenham. We're playing against Essex. And John Beck and Chris Turner were in the stand. They were both, Chris Turner was a Cambridge manager at the time. They were in the stand watching the game. And I get a phone call one afternoon. I'm really, really lucky actually. I'm on guard. I'm guard commander, right? And the phone goes one Sunday afternoon, and it's John Beck. He says, "I'm looking for a guy called Steve Welsh." I went, "That's me, aye." "All right, okay, you play for the army?" I says, "Aye." He says, "Listen, I'm John Beck. I'm assistant manager at Cambridge. Would you mind? Do you fancy coming up for a week's trial?" Now, I was very fortunate. Very, very fortunate. I played in a very, very good army and combined services team, right, and a very, very good Royal Signals team. Very good. Won a lot of things. But in my army team, there was five guys left the army and around the same time as each other to turn pro. So There was a guy called Mickey Cheatham. He was the first one out in our group. He went to Ipswich and then subsequently went to Cambridge. I then came out. I went to Cambridge and then went on. There was a lad called Matt Carmichael who went to play for Lincoln. A lad called Mickey Spencer who went to play for Yeovil. And then probably the big high profile one, the one that everybody kind of knows, is a lad called Guy Whittingham. The guy went on to play, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, I think he's Portsmouth's record goal scorer in a year.
Right.
And he went on to play for Villa, Sheffield Wednesday, Wolves. Had a really good career guy, really good goal scorer. So us five kind of, within about a year or so, all left the army to go in and try our hand at professional football. So it was really lucky. I went across, I think.
What was the transition like? Sorry, Steve. What was the transition like of going from playing in a really good combined service army side to go and play with John Beck at Cambridge? Was it sort of same standard in your eyes?
No, it's very different. Higher? Very different. I mean, I regarded myself. I thought I was quite a fit lad in the army, and blah, blah. Even within the army team, I thought, I'm one of the fitter ones. And you turn up to pro training, and it's just completely different. It's completely different, right? Yeah. It probably took me. I joined Cambridge in January, and it probably took me to the end of the pre-season the following year to really get to grips with it. Right? Yeah. It was, but I joined. You've got to remember, I joined a very good Cambridge side. Right? They had people like Liam Daish, went on to play for Ireland. Phil Chappell, went on to play for Charlton. Lee Philpott, Leicester. Dion Dublin, Man United. John Taylor, Luton Town. Guys who went on in a good Premier League careers, right, or top flight careers. So they were a right good side, and I joined them in the January. We got promoted at Wembley in the June to go into which is now League One, and then we won League One the following year. We won it. And then the following year, I left them and went to Peterborough. The following year, they got to the playoff semi-final to get to the Premier League, and Leicester beat them. Leicester beat them in the semi-final, and it was the year Blackburn came up with Kenny Dalglish. So
Right.
Cambridge were a right good side, really good players, very, very well drilled and extremely fit.
Yeah.
Extremely fit. So it suited me. That kind of disciplinarian style that John Beck instilled at Cambridge suited me. But you think you're fit, but there's a different level of fitness. It's different. It's just a different type of fitness, and it just takes a bit of time to get there.
I'm looking down the list of obviously the teams, which we'll cover each one in a minute. And you did a lot of travelling, especially you was going backwards and forwards to one place. You was going England, Scotland, England. What is it like for someone in the pro game to up and leave, join new teams? You got to find houses. Was the clubs, or was it finding stuff for you for accommodation, or was that down to you yourself? How was it back then? Because obviously a lot of things are done for footballers nowadays.
Yeah, I mean, listen, the biggest thing, the biggest challenge for me, Lou, was the day I drove out the army camp. I left on a Friday, and everything I owned was in the back of a Vauxhall Astra, right? My quilt cover, my stereo, my telly, right? All my clothes. Well, where am I going here, right? I mean, you go up to a flat. The club gave me a flat in Cambridge, and I'd left in January. I was getting married in the summer, so so that was traumatic. I never had to pay a bill in my life, right? Because everything was taken care of me in the army. I had to buy food. I'd never had to buy food before. I'm thinking, right, and I had to cook it myself, right? Because my wife would, or my fiance at the time, she'd come down at the weekend. She'd cook all my food, stick it in the fridge. Right, there's Monday, there's Tuesday, there's Wednesday, right? So, right, but Saturday night Friday night when she came back to see us again, she travelled to see me, stay with me. I was absolutely Hank Marvin by the time she got in. So it was really strange. But yeah, listen, when you move like that, up and down, it's a big thing. It's a big thing. There's a lot to take into consideration. And the clubs are generally, even back then, I'm sure it's even better now, but they're quite, you used to get some sort of relocation allowance within your contract that paid for all your removals and all that, and they try to make it as smooth as possible. But they wanted you up there. They wanted you there the very next day, and your wife or fiance or whatever, they had to follow. Eventually, family, they have to follow, and it takes a bit of settling in. But I've done it enough times, so I should have been used to it.
Yeah, I was looking at the list. I thought, you moved quite a bit. So from Cambridge, you go on to Peterborough, which I know firsthand what Peterborough think of you, because I was at a Boston game one time when you got brought onto the pitch, and wow, standing ovation, noise level. I think it was the same day they brought out Ken Charlie, and poor old Ken got booed by the Boston fans. Then you came, and he was like a hero. So how was your time at Peterborough? Again, on obviously another move, probably not too far, Cambridge to Peterborough, but you made 146 appearances and scored 2 goals, which, looking down the list here, you didn't score many.
No, almost scored as many own goals as I scored goals, I think. So, listen, I had a fantastic time at Peterborough United, and I've got a real soft spot for the club. And as you do when you're successful somewhere, you know what I mean? So, Chris Turner was the manager. He was the manager that bought me at the army at Cambridge, and my contract was up at Cambridge, and they'd made me another offer, and I just didn't want to. I needed something else. The army had given me 18 months. When I left the army said to me, "Go, we'll let you have your contract at at Cambridge. If it doesn't work out, you can come back in the army. It's not a problem. So you've got that safety net." And I sat down, and I remember it was all summer. Bosman wasn't out there, so the club had control of you, right? So there was no Bosman ruling at this time. So if the club offered you a contract, you were knackered, right? So I went down to see John Beck, and there's a story attached to that, but I'll maybe come to that later on. But he offered me a contract, and he doesn't want to sell me, right? He doesn't want me to go, and it's close season. And I've had enough of it. Right, I phoned the club. It's Becky in. He'll be in Monday morning. Right, I'm coming down Monday morning. So we're married now. Right, I'm living in Telford in an army quarter because my wife is still in the army. And So I've driven, set off 6 o'clock in the morning, gets myself to Cambridge. I'm in the car park at 9 o'clock waiting for Becky. He's no turned in. I thought, right, okay. I'll tell you what, by this time, I'll go to my digs and pick up some stuff from my digs. So I'll go to my digs, get a few things, get a bit of breakfast, come back. But 11:30, still no in. Right, okay. So I'm sitting, keep myself busy. He rolls in about 2 o'clock in the afternoon. And by this time, the red mist is, the bolt's about to come out the neck, right? And I walk in, I says, listen, I want to go. I've got an offer for Kettering, I've got an offer for Peterborough. And he sat back, this will take you, shows you how long ago it was. He sat back in his big chair and he's reading Shoot magazine, right? Or something like that, right? and he says, yeah, and I flew at him. I just flew at him. And I've kind of straddling him. I'm swinging punches at him, right? And he's trying to protect himself. And the groundsman's had to come in and drag me off. And he's turning around and I won't swear, but he's saying, you'll never play for another league club in this country, blah, blah, blah. And my eyes are bulging. I'll rip your neck off. Anyway, gone mad. Anyway.
Steve, what you're saying is actually going in palm of the lads' hands what they've been saying about you.
The red mist came down, right? The red mist came down, and I went. Anyway, I cut a long story short. I managed to get rid, and Peterborough United phoned me up, took me down, had a chat with Peterborough United. The bizarre thing is, John Beck tried to sign me 3 times after that. On 3 different occasions, he's tried to sign me, even though I had a fight with him in his office. So he was. Listen, people can say what they want about John Beck. John Beck was really, really organised, thought ahead of his time in many ways. He may not have liked his style of play, but he prepped his teams very, very well, and he was very, very detailed in what he done. Really, he was right into video analysis before when videotapes were kind of that size, right? He was into video analysis, so he was way ahead of his time in many ways, and he was good to play for. He taught you he set real high standards, and so when I went to Peterborough with Chris Turner was very, very similar. He was an ex-defender as well, which helped me an awful lot. He was an ex-centre half, and he would work with me and spent a lot of time with me, and honing your sort of defensive skills and things like that. And I was very fortunate again, really lucky. I joined a very good side in Peterborough, some really good players,
Yeah. So you're there for 3 years. It's looking here on my notes, and in '94, Peterborough send you out on loan to Preston North End, but you didn't play, did you, at Preston?
Yeah, yeah. We had a new gaffer come in, right? John Still came in as a gaffer, and he brought in 2 lads. He brought in Greg Heald and Gary Breen as centre halves alongside myself, right? I had another year left of my contract, you see, so he kind of inherited me, and I always got the impression that he wanted to play Greg and Gary together. Both good players. I mean, Gary Breen went on and played for Coventry and
I remember.
Ireland. Good player, right? And Greg was a good player and was a great lad. So it was the 3 of us vying for the centre half. And I always got the impression he wanted to play the 2 of them together. But I started the season really quite well, and he couldn't really drop me. And then get injured. We got a wee knock, not much. I was out for a couple of weeks, but the 2 lads went in, and to credit to the 2 lads, they've done really well, right? So I'm then having to wait my turn to get back in again, like you do, right? And just at this point, Chris Turner, the chairman, called me up to his office. Chris Turner was now the chairman of the club. It was my old gaffer. He pulled me up and he said, listen, Preston have come in for you. They want to take you up for a month's loan. John Beck was the manager at Preston. I went, aye, okay. So I thought a bit odd, right? So I goes up to Preston and I spend a month at Preston. But unbeknownst to me, they had an FA Cup game against Blackpool. And that was I missed the Saturday game, and we had the game was put off because of bad weather. That's it, and it was put onto a midweek game, and at Preston Blackpool's a big game, right?
Yeah.
But 24 hours before the game, I get the call for Peterborough. They don't want me to play in the FA Cup, so I can't play. So they put a guy called Stevie Holmes in instead. Stevie Holmes went on and played for Lincoln. And I actually played with Stevie Holmes later on in my career. And Stevie Holmes went in and had an absolute blinder. He had a great game. I think he was man of the match. In his debut as well. A great game. So he then played, and I'm on loan and I'm not getting a game. But Becky's come to me. We trained. It was the last week of my loan, and I was training. We trained Monday, Tuesday, made Wednesday off, and he pulled me into his office on the Tuesday. He says, "Listen, Welsh, I want to offer you a contract at Preston. I want you to finish this year and 2 more years." I went, right, okay. He says, "There's the offer," and he just had it in a bit of paper. "There's the offer. Go and chat to your wife about it." So I goes outside the office, looks at it, picks the phone up. "Paula, get Pickford's on the phone. We're OffSctipt. We're gone." Right, it was a right deal. I thought, right, we're going here. I gets down the road, back home to Peterborough. Shows my wife. She went, "Listen, I've got to move for that. I can get a job up there, no bother." Right. Goes back up Thursday morning, and we're all sitting in the changing room waiting for John Beck to come in. And somebody comes in, one of the secretaries comes in. She goes, "The chairman wants everybody upstairs in the dining room." Okay. We all walk upstairs. Becky's been sacked. Becky's been sacked. And you're like, what? Gary Peters took over, and there was 3 of us. There was 3 lads who were in on loan at the time, and he pulled the 3 of us into the office and went, "Listen, guys, I've got to send you back to your host clubs." The chairman said, "I've got to clear the decks." So I went back to Peterborough, and I'd missed out on the deal. I thought, "You're joking." It was a right deal as well. So goes back to Peterborough, played a couple of games, and then pulled in again. I think it was we're about November now, and they pulled me. Chairman pulled me in again. He said, "Listen, I've had 2 offers in for you." It says Partick Thistle and Bournemouth, and I went, "Really? Where did Partick Thistle come from? That one's come right out of nowhere, right?" And he went, and I thought about going back to, but I thought about going to Bournemouth. Mel Machin was in charge at Bournemouth, and I know Mel had liked me. And I thought about going back to Bournemouth because that's where I was in the army, so I was familiar with that part of the world. I thought, no, but the chance, Partick Thistle, Scottish Premier League, it's got to be worth a dabble, that, isn't it? So I goes up. They asked me to go up and play a behind closed doors game. I went up. I played against Celtic at Celtic's training ground, and I done all right. And then they asked me to come back the following week, and it was just before Christmas. I remember it distinctly because we played Blackpool at Blackpool behind closed doors, and because we played Blackpool, and as soon as the game was finished, the Blackpool lads were out on their Christmas night out. They were OffSctipt, right? So I turns up in this hotel. This one, right? I turns up to this hotel. I've been told to report to this hotel on Monday night in Blackpool. Well, my God. I mean, we all know Blackpool, right? And there's some good places and there's some not so good places, right? I turns up to this hotel, right? Guest house, whatever it was. The guy who opens the door's got one eye, right? He's got a limp, right? Got a limp, one eye, dragging everything. Right? He says, "You've got your name here. Go into this room," right? And it's pouring with rain. I'll never forget. And he's put me in this room. There's no central heating. He says, "I'll bring you another quilt up in case you need it." And the windows are shaking like that. They're rattling away. And absolutely freezing. I was freezing cold, right? And I couldn't wait to get up in the morning and have something hot inside me to eat. I get up for breakfast, and this one guy, he's doing everything. He's the one guy, he's doing everything. He's cooking, he's cleaning, he's tidying up. He's got a fag in his mouth, cooking the cooked breakfast and all that, right? And I look at all the lads, and they've been out on the lash. They've been out on it on the Monday night in Blackpool. They're steaming. Some of them are still drunk. We're about to play Blackpool behind closed doors at lunchtime. We're thinking, what is this all about? So we play the game, come back, everything goes all right. Listen, we're going to try and speak to Peterborough, see if we can get a deal organised. I'm like, okay, fair enough. And then that was it, really. I never heard anything for about a week. And it was Christmas Eve, gospel truth, right? Christmas Eve. My wife's preparing everything for Christmas dinner. And I get a phone call, deal's done, need you in Glasgow tomorrow. You're going to need you to sign tomorrow, Christmas Day. You're training at Partick Thistle, Christmas Day. Get yourself up the road. So we literally packed Christmas presents.
Christmas dinner.
half a cooked turkey, shoved it on the car, bosh, off we go, right up the A1. And to my mum's house in Glasgow. So we stayed at my mum's.
Yeah.
I literally trained Christmas morning with Partick Thistle, signed all the paperwork, it got through, and we played at Tynecastle on Boxing Day.
Awesome.
As quick as that.
Hey, Cookie, what do you think of that?
That's brilliant.
That is how times have changed. Never go to a restaurant where someone's doing everything, especially with a fag in the mouth.
Oh, it was
that's a lesson in life. Partick, how good was that for you? You know, Partick Thistle, Scottish Prem, the chances in which you already played against them anyway, playing against your boy team in Celtic. You know, must have been a dream come true, right? At that time.
I took the choice because it was. You're right, Lou. It was I could have probably got more money going to Bournemouth, if I'm being honest with you, right? But I just couldn't knock this opportunity back, right? To go and play at top flight, and you go there with a clean slate. Nobody knows you, and I think that helped me. Right? Nobody knew anything about me. No expectations of me or anything like that. I just turned up and just tried to be myself. It was very different. It was very different to be playing in England.
Just to confirm, John Beck wasn't the manager, was he?
No.
Right.
There was with a guy who, God rest his soul, he's left us now, John Lambie. He just died this last year. If you think John Beck was mad, this guy was like John Beck on speed. This guy was a nutter, an absolute nutter. But I loved it. I loved him. I would run through a brick wall for him. Right? He was just a madman. But what he'd done is we were bottom of the. When I joined Partick Thistle, we were bottom of the league Boxing Day, and traditionally, if you're bottom of the league Boxing Day, you're going down. Right, but he brought in a load of players. He brought in myself. He brought in a lad called Nicky Walker, ex-Rangers keeper. He brought in a couple of. They brought a lad, Rod McDonald for Walsall. He brought in Tam Turner for St Mirren. He brought in a couple of good players, strong players, and we went on a run of games that was unbelievable, right? Unbelievable, and we managed to stay up. With our last 3 games of the season, we had to get 4 points, and we had Celtic away, Falkirk at home, Rangers away. That was our last 3 games, and we had to pick up 4 points for them last 3 games. The fact that we got to that stage was remarkable. We were that far adrift at Christmas, and we had an unbelievable run. Some great tales of how we got to win some of the games. Right, just mad.
Was it the Partick Thistle where your family wasn't too pleased with you tackling a certain somebody?
Oh, that was when I played.
Was that Partick Thistle? Yeah.
That's an odd story. We're playing Celtic. At Firhill, right? And at this point, Celtic, or Tommy Burns, God rest his soul, was in charge of Celtic, and Celtic were building a wee bit of momentum. You've got to remember at this time, and this will be reflected this later on when I show you the best 11. Rangers were winning everything, right? A bit like Celtic have just done for the last 9 years. The 90s belonged to Rangers, right? They won everything in front of them there. League titles, cups, semi-finals of the European Cup on a couple of occasions. Rangers were a right good side, right? A right good side. It does stick in my throat a bit, that I have to say. But anyway, but they were a right good side. And but Celtic were starting to catch them a wee bit. We're on a wee bit of momentum. They'd signed a couple of players. They'd signed George Cadet for Portugal. They'd got in Pierre Van Hooijdonk for Holland. And they were starting to build a real bit of momentum. They were a really good side to play. They played some great football. But we're playing Celtic at Firhill, and all my mates, all my family, can you get us tickets? I got a couple of mates who work in the post office. How many tickets? I need 50 tickets. Oh, what? 50 tickets? Right. You managed to get all the tickets for them, right? And they all come down. Where are we sitting? Listen, come down on a Friday. Where are we sitting? I'm going to sit there. Right, okay. So they're sitting in the stand. They're playing, and the game's going on. And anyway, we've come at the edge of the box, and I'm sort of left-hand side of the box, just outside the box, and Cadet's got the ball at his feet, right? And he's turned, and I've tackled him, right? And he's went, Portuguese guys, they go down if you're breathing them, right? And he's squealing like a pig, right? The next thing I know, I'm stood astride him and I've picked him up like that. I've dragged him, I've picked him up off the floor, and then I look up into the stand, and there's all my family going. All my family and my friends, they're all throwing things at me, pointing stuff at me. As soon as the game's finished, Lou, can you get the wee man? Can you get the wee man in the players' lounge? Can you get us in the players' lounge? Yeah. An hour before that, they're throwing things at me. Right, you're thinking, what's crazy, mate, crazy.
Oh,
so
dear.
it's just a different experience. It's a different experience. We had some great times. We played Rangers at Firhill, and as I say, Rangers are a right good side, and we drew one each with Rangers at Firhill, and it was for us it was an unbelievable result, right? We've drawn with Rangers, absolutely buzzing, because over the time I played up there, I took some beatings off of Rangers, right? Some beatings. But we'd drawn with Rangers one each, and the boys are in the changing room, we're absolutely buzzing, right? And the gaffers come in, he went, right, you lot, 9 o'clock tomorrow, make sure you're in tomorrow morning, 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock. Boys are like, no, gaffer, away and chase yourself, right, in the nicest possible way. Away, no chance. He says, if you're not in at 10 o'clock tomorrow, I'm taking 2 weeks' wages off you. 10 o'clock tomorrow at the ground. So we go, you know, half the lads are on it, right? They're on it, and they're on it all night, right? So we come in the next day, and sure enough, everybody's turned in. Some were in all right state, some were in a terrible state. Just behind Firhill's ground, there's a public park called Rock Hill Park, and it's literally just one big hill, right? It's like a big hill. So we go for a jog around Rock Hill Park. Next thing we know, he's got these tyres with ropes around them, right? And you've got to put the rope around your chest, and you've got to run up the hill dragging these tyres on a Sunday morning, right? And some of the boys are still drunk. They're going, Gaffer, what you doing? The gaffer stood there with a big cigar on, right? Always the big cigar on, and a cup of coffee. He's pissed, right? Got up the hill. You're up doing the hill. The boys are going mental. He pulls you in afterwards, right? He says, right, Sunday morning, if I see anybody in the football club between now and Thursday, I'm taking 2 weeks' wages off you. Disappear. And you go, what? So if I see anybody at the football club between now and Thursday, disappear. You're gone. You get 2 weeks' wages. Right, okay. We turn in Thursday morning. I swear to you, Lou, if we trained for an hour, I would be surprised. Trained Friday morning. We trained 40 minutes. See you later. Played on the Saturday. Won on the Saturday. Right? And the one thing that taught me, Lou, it's not all about ability. Right? It is about man management, and it's about building relationships with people and players, right? If you can get a good relationship with your players, right, and you can get to know your players and what makes your players tick, that's priceless. It's absolutely priceless. And I think that's why people like Jurgen Klopp and Guardiola are so good. Are they good coaches? Yeah, they're good coaches, but what they're really, really good at is forming relationships with people, right? And I think, and you could, I'm not going to say Steven Gerrard, but Steven Gerrard must be pretty good at it because he's done what he's done at Rangers.
Yeah.
Right?
I think the main person, what I noticed, where the knowing your players and having that they knew what line not to cross was Mourinho at Chelsea. You know, with the Lampards and Terrys and stuff. You know, he's like, hold on a minute, you actually seen a guy put an arm around a player and joke about with him and stuff. Whereas, you know, me being a United supporter, it was very much Sir Alex here, players here. He says, if he says jump, you say how high, you know. And
I agree with you, Lou. But I think once you get, I've been fortunate enough to be in a couple of conferences with Sir Alex Ferguson, right, during my coaching career. And actually, when you get down and you talk to players, he had a really good relationship. I mean, the old story about Cantona, well, you can't. You go in the dressing room and he turns to Cantona, you can't do that, son. Right? But he treated everybody as individuals. He had a really good relationship with individual players, and he knew what made players tick. I'm guessing Mourinho done the same at Chelsea, as you say. Klopp's done it. You know, obviously Guardiola's done it. The good managers are very, very good at that. very good at that. And that, John Lambie taught me that. John Lambie said it was not always about, it was about getting into your players' mind, makes your players tick. And, other times, we've just drawn with Rangers, and he hammers us the next day and gives us a few days off because he knew how to manage his players. He knew that I wouldn't sit and do nothing. He knew I'd go to the gym or I'd go out running. And he knew that the older players needed that rest. They needed that rest for a few days, and he would get the better at them. So it's really clever stuff, really clever. And whether he'd done that knowingly or whether he'd done that, it was just intuition, I don't know. But he was very, very good at that. Very good at it.
Now, awesome stuff. From Partick Thistle, obviously playing in the Scottish Prem, you go back to Peterborough again. Obviously, you know the area quite well. Then you make the move to Dunfermline, make 17 appearances, so you've gone back up to Scotland.
Yeah.
Ayr United, you made the jump there. You made 24 appearances, and apparently, according to your, which as I said off camera, I don't tend to believe a lot of stuff on Wikipedia, but apparently you scored a classic goal against Queen's Park at Hampton Park. Is that true?
Somebody's put that on. Listen, Lou, when you score 4 goals in your career, everyone's
a
classic, right?
Was it a tap-in?
Pretty much. But when you score 4 goals in a professional career,
Glenn didn't write this Wikipedia page, did he?
No, I don't know. No idea. But no, I scored 2 goals for Posh. I scored a goal for Partick Thistle, and I scored a goal for Ayr United at Hampden.
Yeah.
In the first round of the League Cup on a sunny Saturday afternoon in July when there's about 350 people watching or something. So yeah. But yeah, I went to Dunfermline. Dunfermline was good. Scottish Premier League again. Some really good experiences. But a couple of injuries at Dunfermline, which didn't help.
Did you start to struggle with injuries as you got older?
Not really. I had an injury when I signed for Dunfermline. I was actually carrying an injury the day, and they knew about it when I signed. Right. I was carrying an ankle injury, and it just lingered a little bit longer than I thought it was going to be. So I had a bit of a stop-start time. I'd have a flurry of games at Dunfermline, and then I'd maybe pick an injury up, and then if I was going to play at Dunfermline, I'd probably play a dozen games, and then there'd be a break, and then there'd be another 8 or 9 games and things like that. So it was a bit broken up. I got a move. I went to Ayr United. I took Ayr United because it was pre-season, and the gaffer said to me, "Listen, I got injured. Right, I'd get injured in pre-season. Right at the end of pre-season, I'd get injured, and I'd recovered. But so I wasn't going to start the season with Dunfermline. The gaffer said, "Listen, Ayr United have come in. They want to take you for a month, but worthwhile going out there and getting some football." I went, "Brilliant, just let me go." I went out, I done well, and then Ayr United come to me and said, "Listen, we want you to stay for the season." And I went, "Right, okay." And done, and that was agreed. I signed a 2-year deal with Ayr. So I had only a year left with Dunfermline. Signed a 2-year deal with Ayr. Very fortunate again. The chairman at Ayr United was quite a wealthy man, so it wasn't a bad deal. It worked out well for me. And we almost got promoted with Ayr. We get pipped to promotion. Hibs beat us by a couple of points, and I really enjoyed it. The one thing I learned at Ayr United was one of my coaches, a guy called Ian Munro. Gordon Dalziel was a manager. Again, very, very good at forming relationships with players. He was really good with me. But Ian Munro was the coach, and Ian Munro was amazing, right? I think over the whole season, I think he maybe duplicated a session twice, right? His knowledge of the game and his knowledge, not just of putting sessions on, but what learning to draw out of those sessions. He was an ex-teacher as well. Ian Munro had played for Rangers, had played for Scotland, played for Sunderland, so he knew the game, but he was an ex-teacher, and that intrigued me, right? I remember I used to write down sessions. Anybody had a book, I've still got it. And if somebody had put a good session on, I would write the session down and just keep it. I'm telling you, when I come back, Ayr United, every day I was writing a session. It was brilliant. He was like an encyclopedia. Minnie was brilliant. So it was a real influence in me as far as coaching's concerned. He was a real influence in me. He made me look at things very, very differently to what I was looking at them. But I remember being up at the start of the second season with Ayr. We'd played the season, and then we were up in the Highlands for pre-season friendly. I think we played Fraserburgh, and then the next day I'm come down for breakfast, and the gaffers pulled me. Gordon Dales pulled me. He said, "Listen, Lincoln have come in for you." I went, "What?" He said, "Lincoln have come in for you." I said, "Where's that one come from?" He went, "They've made a phone call. They'd like to have a chat with you." I says, "Gaffer, I'm really happy here. I was really enjoying my football at this time, right, with a good wee side at here." He said to me, "Welsh, I'm going to be honest with you. This is the last year." I says, "What do you mean?" He says, "The old man is going to fund this year. The chairman's going to fund this year. Then he's pulling his money." He says, "You've only got a year. You've only got a year left in your contract." He says, "My advice is go and have a chat with Lincoln. Have a chat with them, see what they've got to say." He says, "You've always got this to fall back on." He says, "But you're an older. By this time you're an older pro now. You got a lot of respect for you." He says, "But after this year, there will not be any contract for you next year. I'll tell you that now." He says, "We might even go part-time next year." I went, "Right, okay." So I went down. I left a little calling card for the lads, but I may be talking to you about that off screen. A little calling card for the lads as I left the hotel that day. And I went down, and I literally took the train from Aberdeen straight down to Newark. Picked my wife up on the way down in the train, Bosch, and we went straight down to Lincoln, had a chat with Lincoln, and pretty much decided there and then that was my next move.
Yeah. So basically, your playing career. I had it down here that you went to Lynn, but I don't think you played there, did you? Or Kings Lynn? Did you go to Kings Lynn?
Yeah. When I retired for Lincoln, I hung him up and I wasn't playing. And a good mate of mine who I played with at Peterborough, a guy called Tony Spearing, Spiro phoned me up and said, "Listen, you couldn't do me a favour, could you?" And I went, "What's that?" He says, "Could you come and play for Kings Lynn for the season?" And I went, "I don't know, Spiro, I've just hung him up." He says, "I just need you for a season. I've got a young side. I just need somebody who can sort of guide them through it." And I went, "I'll come down and have a chat with you." He says, "I promise you." I'm literally, this is the truth, I'd retired and we were about to take our first family holiday in August. Because you take all your holidays of football, you take it in June, don't you?
Yeah.
So we're all quite excited. We're going away for a fortnight's holiday with the family, with the kids by this time, right? We're going away in August like normal people do, right? We're quite excited about it. And he said to us, he says, "Come on down and have a chat with me." He says, "I'll make it worth your while." I went, "Aye, all right." So I drives down to Kings Lynn and I chat with him, and he says, "Will you come and say?" I said, "I don't know, Spiro. I've got a new job now. I'm kind of coaching now, blah, blah, blah." He says, "Here." And he handed me an envelope. The chairman stood there. The chairman handed me an envelope with £1,000 in it. He went, "Here's some spending money for your holiday." And I went, "Okay, I'll go on, here's a paper, I'll sign that then." so I signed for the season, right? Cheap date. But, give me £1,000 in an envelope, right? I said, "There you go." After, right, okay, I'm off. Back to the wife and went, "Okay, I've got an extra, get you a nice ring or something like that for your holiday." Anyway, so it was good. I went to spend, didn't play a lot of games with Kings Lynn. I was right when I retired. You were asking about injuries. I was very, very fortunate, Lou. I had a cartilage operation when I was at Lincoln. Kept me out for a wee bit, not for long, but right at the end of my playing career, I was starting to have problems with my Achilles on my right foot. And I went to Kings Lynn, and of course at that time you'd stop training every day of the week, so you're training twice a week, and then my Achilles was getting worse and worse. I was kind of getting through games just, and in the end I had to go and see a guy. I seen Keith Oakes, a physio at Lincoln, where I was working at the time. He said, "Listen, you need to go and see somebody about the Achilles." And I ended up going to seeing a guy in Birmingham. He sent me through to see a guy in Birmingham, and the guy done a scan of it, and he says, "Listen, I'm going to have to operate on your Achilles. You've got loads of cysts growing around your Achilles, and if they burst, they're going to burn through your tendon." So he had to open. I've got the scar right down the back of my ankle now, and they scraped away all the cysts and then sewed me back up again. But he said, by this time I'm 35, and he says, listen, the recovery for this is going to be a long time. The Achilles, the blood flow in there is not as good as it should be, certainly at your age. And I had the operation, I think, in the October I had the operation, and I probably didn't kick a ball again until the March, right? And then and to be fair to Kings Lynn, I said, listen, don't pay me any money, because I'm not going to play. I'm not going to get to play for you. I'll come up and I'll watch the games and I'll try and rehab with you. But I kept turning up and I kept watching the games for the season. But once I had the operation, I knew that was me. That was me finished, definitely. So.
And to sign off onto that, obviously it now links into the coaching career. So whilst you was at the red and white team down the road, which we don't like to say on OffSctipt too many times, but you was appointed football and community officer at Lincoln. You was manager of the under-16 Centre of Excellence side, and during the time as well, you was also manager of Spalding, where you managed Mine Cookie's boss, obviously Nick Reeson, and a fellow coach of ours in Jay Lawrence. That's how I first, apart from meeting you on my first ever coaching badge, there was Coops and yourself. You did my assessment, which you may remember or may not. I knew of you through them guys saying that they was playing for you and whatnot. And I think you potentially was going to play for Spalding if they were short, but only if they were short. And then comes 2005, where you joined as a first team coach at Boston. How did that come about? And at that time, was that for Mr. Evans?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, you're right. You're quite accurate in what you've done there. I took over at Spalding. I'd started my coaching career, if you want to call it that, when I was at Dunfermline.
Right.
I started doing my coaching badges, and the guys in the youth department at Dunfermline were really keen for me to get involved. And I used to go and coach their under 14s and a couple of nights a week. So I'd dip my toe in probably in my late 20s and really quite enjoying it. So by the time I got to, and I'd retired, the Spalding job came up. The Grantham job came up. I went and got interviewed for the Grantham job and got shortlisted, get down to the last two, didn't get it. And then about a week or so later, Spalding phoned me up and he said, listen, you come down for a chat. So I went down for a chat and they said, listen, the job's yours if you want it. So I'd never done, apart from my very early days when I was in the army, it's been a long time since I've been in near non-league. So it was a real steep learning curve. And the Spalding traditionally are, how can I put, the chairman at Spalding was, how can I put it? He's a Walter Mitty character, I think is the best way to describe him, right? He was elusive, to say the least, right? He promised he would pay players. I spent more time trying to solve problems with players because I'd agreed one deal with the chairman and then the chairman was paying them something else. And it was just a bit of a car crash, if I'm going to be honest with you. It's a bit of a car crash. But the lads were great. The lads were good. And we done okay. We never done great. We done okay, right? But the offer came out the blue. Keith Alexander was the chairman. I was a manager at Gorgessi Soul, was the manager at the Red and Whites up the road. And he pulled me in one day and he said, listen, Steve Evans has been on the phone to me at Boston. He said he'd like to have a chat with you about doing some coaching through there. So I went, all right. So I met Steve Evans at the Dabsies. And he said to us, listen, I want you to come in. I want to do a bit of coaching with the first team, but I really want you to look after the 18s as well. Really, what kind of a foot in both camps. And I went, that sounds great. That sounds great. Blah blah blah. With a chat about it, and that was it. Really, Lou. It happened quite quickly. It happened within that conversation with Steve Evans to actual appointing was probably only about 10 days, and I was in the building. Handed in my notice at Lincoln, and then come away and started from there. It was very, very different. It was very different.
Yeah.
It was a real challenge. It was a real learning curve. But something I really, really enjoyed. Thoroughly enjoyed.
Yeah, and I got fond memories of yourself coming in. Obviously, there was a lot of turnover in staff players during the Evans days, anyway. But so Neil leaves. Neil Richardson leaves. So obviously, Steve wants you to take on both the head of youth and still the first team coach gig. And with that came obviously joining up with Bedford College Educational Scheme to obviously give these boys BTECs and different qualifications. So again, you've gone from first team coach, taking on the footballing side, to now going into education as well. So a mixture of basically everything, what you can do within our sector. How did you find that, going into now the teaching element? Because obviously coaching and teaching is two different things in aspects. So how did you feel about that at the time?
It was, listen, Lou, it was very difficult time at the club.
Yeah.
It was a very difficult time. I count myself as being very, very fortunate to spend 10 years at Boston, right? Work with some very, very good people who you would trust your life with, right?
Yeah.
Just good people, right? And when we fell out the league, that week we fell out the league, it was as if it felt really empty, right?
Yeah.
But the forefront of my mind is I wanted to keep this academy going. I wanted to keep the Centre of Excellence, as it was called then, academies now, but I wanted to keep that going. And I knew we had 2 years of funding for the kids, but I was looking longer term. And that's what you say. We spoke to Bedford College, they approached us, and we tried to put a programme in place and we had to self-fund the Centre of Excellence, if you want to call it that, and we had to think of original ways to fund that. So, it was a 7-day-a-week job. It was properly full on, right? Properly full on, and it was like you're doing 70, 80 hours a week without blinking. You were doing that because you had to do it, because there's nobody else to do it. I remember the day we had the meeting at York Street. You may have been there, Lou. The club was really in a bad way, and John Blackwell stood up and he spoke to the crowd at the stand, and I could hear in John's voice the emotion in John's voice. He was breaking up, and it cut him to the quick. At that point, Barry Pierpoint was going to be our new saviour. It didn't quite happen, but fortunate enough, in the stand that day was the current chairman and vice chairman, and when they came on board, we had to change the way we done everything. We had to change, and this thing about coaching and education, I've done all my coaching badges, right? I'm very fortunate to do that. But the thing that really opened my eyes is when we started to do the teaching qualifications, right? It's coaching is different to teaching, but there's a lot of things that we can learn from each other.
Yeah.
And it was a real eye. I really changed how I coached after doing my teacher training course. Really, really looked at it very differently. But those days, those first few years, they were a real challenge. I mean, literally running the club was John and Maureen, Craig Singleton, probably Nick as well, Nick Reeson, myself. There's a handful of people running the club, right? And Tommy Taylor came in and was manager, and I love Tommy to death. Brilliant. And then we did a procession of managers after Tommy, wasn't there? So it was just one in, one out, one in, one out, and it was just a crazy time. But crazy time, where you have great memories, some great times, some great laughs. And I said before, work with good people. Good people, you look at John and Maureen, you look at John Thorogood, people who I worked with, Mark Nelson, Melly, Mickey Nuttall, Lewis Thorogood, Martin Bunce, Alex Seaton, people like that. People are good people. Jamie Lawrence, yourself, just good people. And Davy Farrell was at the start as well when he finished.
Yeah.
Faz was quality, and just good people, and people who had strong ideas and good ideas. They weren't prepared to sit in their laurels. They wanted you to get better. And when you get people like that together, it's hard work, but it's brilliant. It's brilliant.
Obviously, the guys we've had on speak very, very highly of you, and obviously, I think it's probably time to touch on that, because obviously we're on the coaching side of things. But youth team was massive. You had a massive hand in the path that these boys have taken, and that they'll openly admit that, and they have done on here. So, you had some good crop of players, because you was at the club where we was in the Football League, so we was getting people from all over. To name one, Adam Roundtree from up north, who stayed in digs at Boston College, I believe, and went did his studies as well with yourself. But you also brought in Neil Thorpe at that time initially when you came in. So shout out to Thorpe, whatever country he's in nowadays. So how did you sort of take the youth team and you sort of develop them players? Obviously, you've got these coaching styles. As we've heard earlier, you had a tyre strapped to you and you was running up a hill. Chances are they might have done something similar. We've heard the story about Freeston, making them run to Freeston, or make them run back. And Tommy was following him, and then you sent him back to do it again. Run into prison camps, methods of telling people to go on and stand on people's toes and stuff like that. Very old school approach to stuff. But again, they are all cracking young people now. All got families, and the life skills you probably give them, at the time they was thinking, oh my God, he's crazy. But actually, you've set them up for life. So, what's your take on the Boston youth team days? Because I know there's a lot of camaraderie, especially on that minibus, what he was driving around.
God, I could tell you some stories about some of the stuff I heard in the back of that minibus, but it's not. Look, it's very, very difficult.
Yeah,
it's very, very difficult to be a professional sportsman, regardless of what sport you're in, right? And when we first started off, when I first came into the youth team, you only had to look at the characters in the dressing room that we had. We had some guys who had thousands of league games under their belts, right? Jason Lee, Noel Whelan, right? Paul Ellender, Mark Greaves.
Joachim.
Right? Sorry?
Julian
Joachim, right? Davy Farrell. These guys have got, between them, get thousands of league games under their belt. So if you're going to make it as a professional, right, and work and be comfortable in that environment, there has to be something that separates you from everything else. You have to be, the one thing you have to be is resilient, right? You have many other traits, right? But you have to be resilient, and you have to be, and if you fail, you've got to be prepared to go again. And in some of the early ones, you look at Nick Jackson told that story really well about how I had no space. I had no space for Nick Jackson as a scholar, but I was desperate to get Nick Jackson in the door because I seen something in Jacko that Jacko wouldn't give up, and he'd fail, but he'd come back and try and prove you wrong, right? And when I asked him to come back, I think there was a bit of reservation. I said, please trust me. You might not make it as a professional, but I tell you what, we'll get you playing, right? And thankfully he came on board, right? And hopefully he had a good time with it. But it's, I live and die by this, right? This kind of one of my mottos really. Hard work will always beat talent, right? When talent doesn't work hard, right? So hard work is a platform and the foundation for everything. You can't. Yeah. The question I asked the lads when we're in coaching just now, so what were you doing at 7 o'clock this morning? Oh, I was in my bed. Well, the best players in the world were probably had been in the gym for an hour at 7 o'clock this morning. Right? Cristiano Ronaldo got knocked out of the Champions League last night, but I'll bet he's in the gym first thing this morning. right? And so that work ethic and those standards have got to be a bare minimum. And I don't mean this to be disrespectful when I say this to people, right? What they consider hard work and what I consider hard work are often different, and it's about closing that gap, right? Because you've got to remember, these lads are 16. They're 16 when they come and join you, right? They are boys. They are boys. And by the time they walk out the door when they're 18, they're men. So it's a real difficult period for them, right? And you've got to, and it takes a while. It takes a while to get them to buy into that kind of that work ethic. And
but especially after we got relegated the leagues, you had the difficult task that these boys have now got opportunities, and you had to turn these boys into men quite quick because they've got an opportunity of a lifetime to play in the first team. So some of the things you was doing, it sounds like it's really bad, but it's not. It was just turning them boys into men.
Yeah.
And you know,
make no mistake. These kids had ability.
Yeah.
Right? People like Adam Milson and John Fairweather and Lee Beeson and Michael Wood and that kind of first group, Ben Joyce, they were good. These guys were good footballers, right? Were they good enough to make it as professionals? Not if they continued the way they were. They had to lift their game. And whether it caught standards, whatever, I don't know. It's not just about working at 100 miles an hour all the time, right? We never had the tools to analyse games that we have at clubs nowadays. I look at our youth team at Doncaster, and as soon as the game's finished, they're watching clips of themselves, or they're watching clips. So that we never had that back in them days. So we had to make do with things, and we had to really concentrate on ourselves and make the. And initially, Lou, we were playing that football, that Puma Youth Alliance. We weren't any better or any worse than any of them. We were competing with Doncasters and Hulls and Hartlepool and Darlingtons and Notts counties. We'd give any of them a game. Right? And I mean, there's some great stories off the back of it, and because we were not only we worked hard, right, but we good footballers, and hopefully I would like to think we were well organised and we were fairly well coached, so that the kids, were competitive. Right. The night we played Lincoln, I heard Jacko talk about the night we played Lincoln, we get beaten penalties in the FA Youth Cup at Central Bank. We were a good side, and we'd played Lincoln in the league, I think, a couple of weeks before, and they beat us by the odd goal. So the boys they're, like Jacko was saying, they're all bragging about it. But the boys will get the bit between their teeth. But in the first half, we were really disappointing. We didn't play well at all. I think we were a couple of goals down. And I'll never forget this, right at about 5 minutes to go in the first half, the ball's been played, their goalkeeper or somebody's put it long, and all of a sudden Nick Jackson's pulled the ball down out the air and played a pass. Right? And it was as if that was the spark.
Yeah.
As if they said, relax, stop, do what we want you to do, pass the ball. Right? And for the next, I'm not kidding you, Jacko, and for the next 45 minutes, we battered Lincoln, and we battered them in extra time, and we should have won the game. We had a couple of right chances at the end to win the game, and ultimately we get beaten penalties. But the second half and the whole of extra time is what my youth teams were all about. High energy, but pass the ball, move the ball, be aggressive, but pass the ball, and they were a credit to themselves that night, even though they get beat in penalties. But we were competing against some good sides, and I'm absolutely certain, Lou. I'm absolutely certain that if we were still in the Football League, right? If we were still in the Football League at that time, you would have taken one or two of them as young pros. I'm certain.
Yeah.
Right? I see some of the lads who are playing now, and those guys, I would have taken one or two of them as young pros. Right? But you're then having to, we're in the non-league, you're having to blood Mitch Griffiths, Nick Jackson, John Fairweather, Adam Milson into non-league football. That's a different animal altogether. And some sink, and some not sink, but some swim. Some can handle it.
Yeah.
Some it's maybe too early for them.
I was obviously I used to come along and give you a hand with the youth team and stuff. So I learned a lot from watching sessions and the way you manage people as well. I remember a scenario down the Davsey where two lads I won't name names, but two lads ended up having a scrap, and I was like, I was nudging you. I was like, you're gonna deal with them, and you went, no, Lou, just leave them. And I went, you what? And again, this is an eye opener to me as a young coach at the time, and you just let them have a bit of a brawl, get it out of the system, and then you walked in. In fact, you did that famous coach whistle. What you can do, it's a gift. You walked in. They both stood still. I think one was on top of the other, about to hit him. And you told them to get up, and you told them the words was, put that passion and fight into tomorrow's game. And I remember fondly that the two people, one was centre half, one was a right back. And they played so well the next day and got performance because they actually put that fight and passion into the game. And I was like, oh my days, these two look all but like they was going to kill each other. But again, that was your man management style. And what I was a big fan of as well, which some of the guys have touched on during the other podcasts, is the taking the boys out of the comfort zones. Really difficult nowadays. I said on, I think it could have been the last one, it's really difficult nowadays with the type of kid. They hate it. They couldn't do it. Whereas some of them really reveled in it and shone. You know, for example, the Santa fun run. Me and you used to go, and with Shannon, I think it was, who was helping out, and Jamie would be in town just to monitor it, having a coffee, and you're just seeing loads of Santas run around Boston, you know, helping an old lady across the road, you know, getting a kiss off somebody, pretending to be arrested by the police and having a photo with whatever. But it was scenarios, again, setting them up to break the mold, let the barriers down, and, you know, show a bit of maturity as well. Cookie, it is a good one for you. Steve was always positive when he was working with us, and I've never really seen him be negative, but I've seen the biggest smile come across his face, and you wouldn't believe when. He came to me with the laptop up, and he was like, Lou, look at this. Look at this. This is brilliant. And it was, I think he knows what I'm going to go on about. He liked to take the kids to a campsite or, you know, setting up tents and stuff. He's found the most dingiest, horrible place in like Skeg or somewhere. And their website, I kid you not, sang "We're all going on a summer holiday" in like a polyphonic ringtone sound. And he was like, "This is the place. This is magical." And he had them up at like 5 in the morning on the beach running and stuff like that. Again, life skills. It's brilliant. And you were so excited about that place.
I'll tell you exactly where it is. It's at Trusthorpe, right, just outside Mablethorpe, right? I'll tell you now, right? Listen, Lou, that you're right. We can't do it. If I say that I want to do that to my girl at HR, she'll have kittens, right? Oh no, you can't do this, you can't do that. But back then, we used to go every August. It used to go in August, right, just before the bank holiday, and we would go for 2 nights, and we would turn up and we'd say to the parents, right, it might cost you 20 quid or something, right? You've got to bring your own food. You've got to cook your own food. You'll get a shower token a day, right? So you get one shower in the shower block a day. They're coming in tents, blah blah blah. So we all roll up, say on a Tuesday morning. We all pitch up all the tents, and then we'd go into the beach. Right, everybody pitched up and everybody's ready to go. We'd go to the beach and we'd take them for some physical work along the beach at Mablethorpe, and we'd finish up at the sand dunes at the far end, and they're up and down the sand dunes, right? And they were knackered, right? You have a couple of hours at it, right? And then we all walk back to the campsite together as a group. So you're walking about 1.5 miles along the beach. So everybody's talking to each other. It's just that pulling everybody together. They then got to sit and eat. They've got to cook their own dinner. Now some guys were turning up, not a lie, with 2 bags of 72 packets of crisps. That's them for the 2 days, right? You're going, of course, the lads are going, have a bit of that, and kids left with nothing, right? So you've all got to chip in. They've got to cook their own food, right? So that was the first night. The second, so you cook their own dinner, and then they've got a bit of downtime. So the place is in the middle of nowhere, like the nearest chip shop's about 1.5 miles walk away, right? They've got the clubhouse, which is brilliant, absolutely brilliant. It's got bingo on a Monday night, right? Boxing night on a Tuesday, right? Karaoke on a Wednesday, right? Special guest on a Thursday, right? Right? Brilliant. It's absolutely brilliant, right? So the kids can't go anywhere, right? And they won't serve them alcohol or anything like that. So it was really safe. It was really, really safe. And they had to respect that there was other people there on holiday because there was caravans and everything there. And there's people camping for the week of the week with their kids. So you have to behave yourselves. Following morning, you're right, up at 5:30 on the beach for 6, playing football. Bring them back, cook their own breakfast. Then we'd take them out for a proper training session. We'd go down to Mablethorpe Football Club. There's a big grass area next to it. We'd set up the coaching session. We'd do a proper session with them. And then in the afternoon, on the beach, first years v second years, game of cricket, losers in the sea, all that sort of stuff. And then we'd come back and we'd have a bit of a social maybe the last night, we'd have a bit of a social. Kids would maybe do skits taking the mickey out of me and Jamie or me and Faz, right? And then we were, but everything was controlled. Everything was controlled. They could express themselves. They could do this and do that. But by 10 o'clock at night, right, quiet, boom, bed, let's go, right? And listen, I'm sure the lads will tell you, we did some great times. Some great times doing that. I'm not so sure they quite like the 5:30 on the morning on the beach, but I enjoyed that. It was really good fun. But again, it's like building that team spirit. Whether that comes from being in the army, I don't know. But I had it everywhere I played. I had that the most successful teams I've played in always had that kind of everybody would do it for each other.
I know the players they remember fondly the going to the army sites, and that was a residential. But I suppose from yourself, you've shown them a different route. One, it's competitive. Two, it might be something that they might be interested in sort of enlisting, and so on. So I think there was a hidden meaning behind going, not just to play football.
Well, a couple of stories, right? We went to RAF Uxbridge in London, right? So we used to play the RAF officers every year because we based ourselves at Cranwell. It was just to kind of oil the wheels. We'd play them at York Street. They'd come and have a weekend at York Street, and then later on in the year we'd go down to RAF Uxbridge. So the first year we went down, I caught a bit of Butch's podcast about this. So Faz and I, Dave Farrell and I are taking them. We've got away down to Uxbridge. We've played the RAF officers, no problem. They've put us in this barracks room, right? And they're on two dorms, right? Right. You've got to remember, these boys are 16, 17 years of age, testosterone everywhere, right? And you're going to get the odd scrap. Sometimes you're just going to get that. It's life, right? But we're upstairs, me and Faz. The game's finished, a night kick-off, so we must do about 11:30 at night. And me and Faz are upstairs and the lads are downstairs and they're making a racket, right? As they do, as kids do. So Faz goes, well, I'll go and deal with this. I said, you better, Faz, because if I go down there, I'm going to go bananas, right? We go down, Faz goes, listen, guys, you need to calm down. So he's gone down about 3 times and they're piping down, but not much. It must have got to about 2 o'clock in the morning. I've had enough. Blanket off, right? Down I go. I've kicked a door in. Right, you lot. And I think I've caught one of them with a chair behind his head like that. What he was doing with it, I don't know. There's mattresses up the wall, right? There's it's carnage. It's carnage, right? Right, you lot. Get yourself to bed, or else I'm going to smash these, right? I'll get my own back. And that's right. Butcher's right. We come back and we went via Cranwell. We went via Cranwell on the way back, and we took them on the hill at Cranwell.
Yeah.
I'll teach you. So just little things like that, right? I know, moaning and groaning, but the following year, Jamie and I went, or a couple of years later, Jamie and I went with, and RAF Uxbridge was closing down. This time with the college lads ways as well. So some of them weren't necessarily footballers, right? So they're going, oh, we're going to London, right? So Jamie and I are going, what are we going to do with this lot? And literally round the corner for RAF Uxbridge was like a bit kind of retail park. They had like a Frankie and Benny's, Five Guys, that type of thing, right? And and a couple of pubs. Right? Some of them were 18, remember. Oh no, this is a bit disaster written all over it. But this time we're in the sergeants. They put us in the sergeants' mess because they're closing down, so everybody's in individual rooms, so it's easily controllable. So Jamie says to us, Steve, would it not be better going out and buying them some beers and just go and sit in a room and we can control it all? I went, I don't know, Jamie, okay, come on, we'll do it, right? So we go round and we buy a load of beers, enough maybe for 2 beers for everybody, right? And we're sitting in the room, this big sitting room, and the boys are having a couple of beers. And of course, a couple of beers is to you and I is fine, but to some of these boys, 2 beers and they're gone, right? And they're going, oh no, right? So I spent that whole night walking up and down the corridor. I'd spent the whole night walking up and down the corridor, making sure nobody came out of the room, right? Just as that. And then the next day we went to the Emirates and got a tour of the Emirates. And to the kids' credit, they were brilliant. They were really, really well behaved. Brilliant. Really, really good. Really, really good. But it's just little things like that you offer a little bit of responsibility to the kids. Say, right, come on, are you mature enough to take that, or are you going to go mental? And actually, to their credit, they were brilliant, really, really well. But some good times.
Yeah, like I say, great times and fond memories of youth team days, and I think that's what it's all about, because even if they didn't make it and play, like for your Whizzes and Spaldings and Boston Towns and stuff like that now, at least they're taking something away from that experience. So, and that's what it should be about.
Lou, over the years, we had some good teams. Yeah. We had some good teams, right? That first group you're talking about, Adam Milson and Jono and Woody and all that, Nick Jackson, they were a good side. And then you got a couple of years later, you bring in the Scott Dawsons and the Jacob Smitheringales and Jason Field. Again, that group, I think we were 1 point off of winning the league. Yeah. I think we get beat. I think they played Stalybridge Celtic away and we get beat 1-0. We drew with them. We had to beat them, but we were very, very close to winning the league.
But it was the local talent as well. You give opportunities to, and I know James Palin at Wimbledon, who's a good friend of mine and Cookers, he'll be buzzing about this one. But it's the likes of Grant Butlers and stuff like that who came through the college. He was probably going to play for the college, but you actually had him in with the youth team because he excelled so much.
Jacko made a good point, Jacko made a good point when he was talking about how he felt the Boston boys had a wee bit of something in them, right? Yeah. And there's a point to that. There's a point, it's as if some of the Boston lads had a wee bit of a pebble in their shoe, if you know what I mean. A wee bit of a chip, not a chip, that's not true, but there was a desire there to kind of almost underdog desire to prove everybody, oh, you're from Boston, where's Boston? Well, actually, we're not that bad, right? And I don't just mean that group, all the way through the groups, the Grant Butlers and the Jordan Nuttles and people like that, all had that wee bit about them, right? Yeah. They all had that wee bit about them. They wanted to go and prove people wrong. Scott Dawson's, Jason Field's group, that group as well. Even when you go further on, later on, the Miles Lynch's and the Josh Spencers and the Ollie Prices, people like that, all had that wee bit about them that they want they all wanted to prove the world wrong. Yeah. Right? And as a result, we had some really good FA Youth Cup runs. And we done well in leagues and things like that. And the kids, some of the opportunities, some of the things that the kids are doing, those say kids, that's terrible, they're all grown men now. But some of them are doing they're all doing great things, but some of them are doing exceptional things.
Yeah. No. A lot of them are playing still to this day, and whether that's Links League or UCL, they're still doing so well for himself. Like you mentioned about Aaron Iyer, he's in the RAF. Again, he probably knew what he's getting himself in for because he's been through a Welsh training session. So he said, I think when he went in, he said, I've already done day one. I've done it with Steve. Done at Preston. But it's brilliant. And obviously when you did that, and 18th of November was the date, 2008. You mentioned that you've got a lot of time for him. Tommy leaves, and you now appointed caretaker manager of the first team. And after a month of half decent results, she was appointed permanent manager. And it was said that you from a coach to a manager, you ticked all the boxes. I do have, courtesy of our good friend at OffSctipt, Mr. Christian James at Boss United Stats on Twitter. I do have your stats as a first team manager of Boston, Steve, and it's not bad really. You played 34, you won 10, drew 12, and lost 12. Team scored 40 and conceded 43. And in his words, was not bad for a side in a relegation battle. The first game was at home to Frickley and lost 3-2. Biggest win, 5-0 at home to Prescott, and the boy Ricky Miller scored a hat-trick. That's right. Heaviest defeats was a 5-0 home and away to Nantwich. I believe you missed that, though, because you was ill, Nantwich. And Stuart Talbot had to take the team, which you picked the side, which you probably want to say Talbot picked the side, right?
No, you're right. Look, the two Nantwich games stick out for me for various reasons. You're right. I'm very fortunate. I don't often get ill, but it was just between Christmas and New Year we played Nantwich, and I was really ill. I was up at Cranwell one day taking training, and I had every bit of clothing in my wardrobe on. I was terrible state. I got home, didn't get out of my bed for 3 or 4 days. So, Tobbs took that, and we get beat 5-0. I do remember that the Prescott game because, well, the chairman asked me. The chairman said to me when Tommy left, I was literally down training at Freeston's, and Tommy. Next thing I know, I see John Blackwell standing at the side of the training ground. It's John down there, and he's waving me over. So I goes across and he says, Tommy's left. I'm like, you're joking me. As I was pulling out the car park, Tommy was pulling in. I thought, but you're joking me. He went, no, he's been relieved of his duties. You're joking me. I went, right, okay. He says, so when you're finished here, come and see me in the office. I went, right, okay. So I went to see him. He says, the chairman wants to talk to you. So I want to phone the chairman. Chairman says, Steve, will you take it short term? And I says, listen, I'll do what I've got to do, right? So we done it. We got a few results. We got a wee bounce at the lads. And any company says, listen, I'm going to appoint you permanently, right? Will you do me a favour? And I says, what's that? He says, can you keep us up? And I went, oh, well, I says, I can, but we had a bit of a hangover for the Football League with guys who were still on Football League contracts, right? And half of them but there was a few of them sat in the stand, no playing, injured. Right, okay, maybe not, I don't know. But, I had a choice. I said, right, if you want me to keep you up, I need to bring in 2 players. I need to bring Andy Stanhope in with me because he's got an idea of players. I says, and I need Paul Ellender and I need Ricky Miller. Right? I said that just in the new year, I said that to him. I says, if you want me to stay up, if you're serious, I need these 2 guys in. Ellie will shore everything up for me. I says, and Ricky's got goals in them. He says, Steve, I've got no money. The financial crisis had just hit, right? And it had hit businesses bad, right? He said, I've not got a brown penny. And I says, well, I'm going to have to throw the kids in. And it's a kind of sink or swim scenario, right? And I remember going to Ilkeston one evening, throwing Mitch Griffiths on. And I took Mickey Nuttall with me. I asked Mickey must have been 38, something like that, 39, maybe more. And I said, Mick, will you come and help me out? I just need some. Mick came on the bench. We were getting beat 1-0. Mick's went on, he's tricked the centre forward in, he's tricked the centre half, got a penalty. Mitch Griffiths has crossed it in, Mick's went down, got a penalty, and we drew 1 each. And that was a kind of spark for us a wee bit.
Yeah.
Jacko came in, Millie came in, and we gave them game time. Some of them struggled with it, some of them coped with it better than others. But it was one of them where we had a decent group of non-league players who would help these young boys, the Parker brothers. Wes and Liam, and we'd 1 or 2 other lads who would help these kids, right? And I thought it was a really good environment to help them with it. And I kept saying to people, listen, don't worry if you make mistakes. I've made more mistakes than any of you. Just go and play. And some of them done, Millie done particularly well, but Jacko done all right. And yeah, I remember putting Jacko in, and I felt rotten for him because he had a bit, not a bad game, but he was struggling a wee bit. The guy he was playing against was a good player. He was playing at York Street, and he had a first half where he just wasn't getting anything right. And I said to him I remember saying to him at half time, listen, I'm not going to swear, I says, but just tell them to get to Fenerbahce, right? And just got on with your game. And he just needed that encouragement, and he got on, he done all right. He done all right in the second half. He managed it. And that, for me, that's a real positive. The guy's having not a great half of football, and then he comes and steadies himself in the second half against that type of opposition. That's really good for a kid's development. That really good for that as well. So
you've obviously enlisted the trust in him as well, and it just rubs off.
Yeah, you've got to make decisions. It's difficult. Eventually, the gaffer, the chairman, let me bring Paul Ellender in and Ricky Miller. Now I knew Ellie's legs had gone, but I knew Ellie could pull everybody around, because he was a great pro. Ellie was a great pro. Pull everybody around about him. And then, as you say, Ricky scored 3 at Prescott first half. I think he scored 3 in the first half, if my memory serves me right. And I went on, and Ricky scored the goal. Well, I remember going to Hednesford away. It was second last game of the season, and Hednesford were flying at the time. And we went and we defended. I mean, Ellie was outstanding. Was outstanding. And we just defended brilliantly. And then we popped the ball over the top with 5 minutes to go, and Ricky Miller's gone, and he's managed to toe poke it in, and we won 1-0. It was a proper smash and grab. I say smash and grab, but we just defended really, really well. I think it's one of the few times I've up the dugout giving it stuff, you know what I mean? Delighted with him. And I was really relieved, and we managed to score. That pretty much kept us up, and in fact that was my job done, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
And the season finished, and the chairman come to me and he said, "Do you want the job?" And I says, "Well, I can give you 2 answers. I can give you an answer from my heart and an answer from my head." And he says, "What do you mean?" I says, "If I give you an answer from my heart, I'll take the job tomorrow. Take it now, and I'll go and work away." I says, "But my head's saying, you don't need me, right? You don't need me. You need somebody. I can tell you, like I said to you before, Lou, I can tell you there's a great 12-year-old fullback in Lincoln, or a great 14-year-old centre-half in Boston. What you need is somebody who knows the best left back in the Conference North, right?
Yeah.
And the best centre-half or the best centre-forward at the budget you've got. I'm not your man if that's what you're looking for." And he says, "I thought as much, Steve. I thought as much." And that's when they brought Rob Scott and Paul Hurst in, and they done brilliantly.
Yeah. But I'll come back to that bit. But obviously, just finishing off your stats as first team manager, you got 13 clean sheets.
Yeah.
You know, some may say you're bringing in kids. You brought in Ricky Miller, Gary King, Ben Sedgemore, Paul Ellender. Obviously, was a vital part, and obviously he improved a lot of the young kids around. You gave first starts of the season to Butch, Milson, Fairweather, Beck, and Jackson. It's like we've set this up on the podcast without having Becky on.
Mm.
Your top goal scorers under your reign was Ollie Ryan with 9, Ricky Miller with 6, and John Rowan with 5. You ended the season 16th. You had joint 4th best defensive record in the league through, though conceded 52 all season. So that's not really too bad when you look at the actual stats and what you did with the club. But with Rob and Paul coming in, and I know this obviously with knowing you, you was quite a vital part of. Was it Sean Pearson coming in? You'd identified Sean for Rob and Paul, and I think was you behind the Jamie Clark coming in?
Yeah.
Had you already agreed that with Stanford?
Yeah, I'd agreed that with Stanford. Towards the end of the season, whether you don't know whether you're getting the job or not getting the job, or being offered it or not. But you have to start forward thinking. And I'd spoke to Pierce about coming, and I'd spoke to 1 or 2 others about coming. And the first time I met Rob and Paul face to face was at the community day. The community day on the pitch, and we'd set some stuff up with some of the younger teams playing. I get introduced to the both of them, and I said, "Guys, listen, there's nothing more inappropriate than the old manager hanging about, right? A bit like Shankly used to do at Liverpool years ago. You know." I said, "Listen, you won't see me. I won't be anywhere near training. I says, it's your job. You got on with it. I've got my job. If you need me for anything, don't hesitate to pick up the phone. But I've identified a couple of players that you might be interested in. Gave them the players, and they obviously acted on that thereafter, right? And they were great, to be fair to the two of them. The two of them were great to me. And I'd sort of phone them like the day before a game, wish them all the best and things like that. But really, my involvement with them was minimal. The odd phone call conversation. Once they got their players in, they were their own men, and they got on with that. And fair play to them. Fair play to them. I did say to them, if I found that there was a talented kid coming through that we felt had a real chance, then I'd give him a heads up. The obvious one probably being Tom Hopper at the time. We had Tom in the system. Melly told me about Tom Hopper, and I'd been to watch him a couple of times. He was only 14, 15 at the time. So this boy's got something, right?
I remember speaking to you one time at the club about the next up and coming one, and you said Tom Hopper, and I said, well, what does Tom Hopper do different to all these other lads? And you said, whereas a good player we've got at the minute can do something in 3 touches, he can do it in 1.
Yeah.
So it like opening his body up to receive, to play quick, and it just knew everything. It just had that little bit of magic. And I remember you saying that to me. I was thinking, wow.
Melly, Mark Nelson said, listen, Mark had him as a youngster, and he said, Stevie, listen, he just turns games in his head. He just give the ball to Hops and he goes and scores. And he says Melly had a really good group of young players at that time. There was Jake Beauchamp, there was Ellie Price, Hops, a few others. Good side, good kind of very, very good mid-links side, if you want to call it. We brought them into the academy, and I remember saying, I took Hops one night. Melly and I took him to play for the youth team early season. We went to play Leicestershire under 18s at Leicestershire's County FA. And I phoned my mate. My mate was a under 18s coach at Wolves, guy I used to play with. I says, Mick, you've got to come and look at this boy. This boy's, he's got something different about him. I says, I'm not blown up. Anyway, my mate, Wolves have come along to watch him that night, whether they were there to watch Hops or there to watch just a game. But there was Wolves there, Newcastle there, Stoke were there, Leicester were there, Forest were there. There must have been a dozen or so clubs there. And Hops is a 15, under 16, started under 16, so he's just 15, has tore the place up. Right? He was almost unplayable that night, right? And my mate said to me afterwards, he says, I'm going to have a word with him. But Leicester obviously acted a lot quicker. Leicester were in and Bosch straight on the phone to him. And he was in, and he went on trial, and obviously the rest is history. He went on and signed for Leicester. The day he signed for Leicester, I'll never forget it. I was in the boardroom, probably doing something with Grant Butler or something like that, or something, I don't know, right? But Tom Hopper's dad's come in, Tim Hopper's come in, and he said to me, Steve, we're just on our way to sign for Leicester. Just to thank you. I was like, oh, just away you go. Good luck to you. Good luck, Tom, all the rest. They left the boardroom, and I swear to you, within half an hour, the phone goes, it's Manchester City. Yeah, Tom Hopper, yeah. I said, well, you better be quick. There's his dad's mobile. He's on his way to sign for Leicester. Now, at this time, Man City weren't what Man City are now, but still Man City. As soon as I put the phone down, the phone goes again, Tottenham Hotspur. See, Tom Hopper. I says, yeah, there's his dad's number. He's on his way to sign for Leicester. If you can convince him otherwise, good luck to you. So, I mean, obviously went on and signed for Leicester, and he's done what he's done, and obviously he's playing for that lot up the road now. But he's a decent career out the game, but good player.
Yeah. So overall, your tenure at Boston was, very successful. You had a great time. Obviously, you're brilliant at setting up inflatable football pitches on Community Day, or taking it down especially. But good memories, happy times. very successful in the way of, so you kept the club up, and one of your kids ended up becoming 5-time player of the year that year. Yeah. It's amazing feat really. So obviously you then moved on from Boston. You ended up going to, was it Ilkeston, your first one away?
Yep.
You then had a really great run in the FA Youth Cup, which obviously you had memorable nights at Boston as well in 2015-16. From Ilkeston, you went to Long Eaton at Nottingham, which you obviously played against Boston's youth team set up under 19. And from there, which you're currently at, what's your official title at Doncaster Rovers? It's
I'm head of coaching at Doncaster.
Head of coaching. So it's come full circle really, hasn't it? So you've gone from a little team in Scotland, St Mirren, up and down the country here, there, dragging Paula and the kids everywhere. But you seem quite settled in the job. You're happy in the job at the minute?
Yeah, good. Lou, listen, we've kind of went through there. Some great, just brings out some great memories. Been very, 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 very fortunate in my life to have worked with some good coaches, played with and worked with some very good footballers. I've coached some very good footballers. But the most important thing is I've worked with good people and people you can trust. Do you know what I mean? And I think about my 10 years at Boston, and you can't work for a football club for that long and go through the highs and lows that we did at that time without having a real affinity for the place. Yeah. And I can't wait for next season to come, or some point, to come down and look at a new ground. But there's a part of me is sad really, because York Street is York Street. York Street is old, it's battered, it's knackered, it's creaking at the edges, it's apart, but it's a great place to play football.
Oh,
great place. It's a great place to be involved. When you get, I remember full house. You had Rochdale last year, didn't you? But I remember when Lincoln used to come and they would fill, and it would just be a great atmosphere. You had big nights at York Street. It was a really, really good atmosphere. And it saddens me a little bit because it's perfect. It's right in the middle of town. I guess youngsters who would go and watch football with their dad, and they go and watch Boston at York Street, and they come out and they get a bag of chips and a pickle and they make their way home. That's what memories and football is all about, right? Nowadays, they'll be going to York Street, or they'll be going to the new stadium and coming out and having a vanilla latte, right? Right, rather than a bag of chips and a pickle, it's a vanilla latte, right? So bit different, but the stadium looks great, and I wish the club every success there. I really, really do. But there's a part of me still going to be at York Street for sure. Still going to be a part of it.
There'll always be a part of us all, which is at York Street. It's just a magical place, and just that before we went into a lockdown, just having that last memory, which I think it might get replayed on people's Facebooks, every other week, is the goal Thulis scored, and the crowd went mental. We was working that night, me and Cookie, and along with the other community staff members, and it was just bonkers. We had to direct people to which entrance they need to be at, because it was just massive. And you get the TV cameras there, you're going to have loads of people, but it just adds so much, and it brought the town together. It was just a shame, it ended like it did, because obviously the chairman deserved that as well, on the final farewell. Hurrah for the place. So, but what's happened. As you say, the new stadium's coming along nicely, and we look to hope, or we fingers crossed, we look to hope and get the fans in very, very soon, really. So that's sort of your pro career, going through your coaching, a few stories, the teams after Boston. Cookie, this is your section. You probably got no clue which these players are going to be, so I might have to help you out.
Right, the 1 to 11 then.
Yeah.
Righty, do you want to just give the viewers a little brief? Because I'm guessing you give Steve a brief.
Yeah, so to be honest, I didn't give Steve a lot of time, not like the younger lads. I dropped it on him about an hour before we was about to record, and I said I offered it players who you've played with or against, and he's gone for players he's played against. So the 1 to 11 is the players who he's played against. And as I said, if Michael Laudrup or one of the Laudrup, it is Michael, isn't it, who you played against, Steve?
Brian
Laudrup. If Brian's not in it, it's a travesty. All right, let's go.
All right, goalkeeper.
Schmeichel.
Don't have to say no more, really.
Well, it's gone big.
No, listen, I feel like I don't want to swear. I feel like it's as if you're dropping names left, right, and centre here. But you're asked for the best players. The one or two surprises, but here we go. Schmeichel. I've got it for a 4-4-2 formation, by the way.
Excellent.
Love that. Defenders then?
Right back, I've went with Lee Dixon.
Nice.
So Schmeichel, when did you play against Schmeichel, Steve?
He was at obviously Man United. He played a reserve game.
Nothing.
It was a reserve game he played, and he was coming back for injury, and we played up at Man United's training ground with Cambridge, and it was brilliant. Yeah, good.
So Kevin Pilkington was meant to play that game, but Schmeichel came in because he's
not bad. Not bad.
Not bad.
It was a close one between him and somebody else, but I'm not Schmeichel.
When did you get to play against Dixon? Who was you playing for then?
Cambridge again. Played him in the FA Cup. Played him in the FA Cup at Highbury at the time when Tony Adams and all that group were there. So that was in the early 90s. Good side.
Yeah, awesome. Left back,
I'm not sure. I'm torn. I would say maybe a lad called David Robertson, right? Who, if you ever get the chance to watch BBC iPlayer, look at Real Kashmir. If you've ever seen it, Real Kashmir. Dave Robertson played for the other half of Glasgow. I played for Scotland as well. I was torn between him and somebody else, but I think I'm probably going to give him the nod. You know, you can't play in the European Cup semi-final without being a decent player. So I'm going to have to give it to him.
Right. Centre-halves?
2 centre-halves. Sol Campbell. Right. Although when I played against Sol Campbell, he was centre-forward for Tottenham.
Really?
He played centre-forward the night we played them. We played him in the FA Cup and then had a replay with him. So he played, and alongside him, I'm going to put Richard Gough.
Right.
Richard Gough, Rangers in Scotland captain. Just a Rolls Royce of a player. Sorry, he was a Rolls Royce of a player. Both of them were, but Gough was incredible. Incredible. Played for Tottenham, obviously. And
who was you playing for when you played Tottenham?
No, I played against him when he played for Rangers. Rangers, so I was playing at Thistle and Dunfermline. He was playing for Rangers. Right. So, okay. Midfield.
Let's go with the flanks.
I've put Laudrup on one of the sides, right?
Yes.
I've put Brian Laudrup on one side, right? Only, and I'll tell you this true story, right? Laudrup. Up to that point, he was the best player I've ever played against. He had unbelievable balance and he was unbelievably quick. And for a whole year, I took absolute pelters because of him. You've watched Match of the Day and the titles come up Match of the Day to start Match of the Day, and it's all in Scotland. It's called Sports Scene, right? And in the opening credits, there's Brian Laudrup got the ball and his knee about to slide in and take the ball off him, and he just nips the ball over me. And that's on every single week for 40 weeks of the year, and you're getting absolute pelters for it, right? So, but he was incredible. He was as quick with the ball as he was without it. And his balance was incredible. You know, you don't win the European Championships with Denmark without being a good player. So
no, definitely not.
Okay, I've went with a tight midfield three, right? I've went with John Collins.
John Collins, yeah.
John Collins used to be at Celtic and Eminent on to play for Monaco. John Collins was a he would touch every blade of grass on the pitch, John Collins, but his vision and his passing was phenomenal. I think actually as he left Celtic, went on, he was at Hibs, Celtic, and then he went on to Monaco and he won the European Cup with Monaco. I think when he went to Monaco, he was an even better player. He was, that foreign French football really suited him. European football suited him. Very, very good footballer. Very.
When did you play against John Collins? Who was again? Was that
Thistle? Yeah, Thistle at Firhill and at Celtic Park. And then alongside him, I put Paul McStay for Celtic. McStay was when I played against McStay. It was at Thistle and Dunfermline, and he was probably at the end of his career, right? I remember watching him for Celtic as a young kid, and they used to call him the Maestro. I mean, he could have played in any league in the world, right? When the Italian league was the best league in the world, every year when he was at Celtic, there was Italian clubs trying to buy him. He was that good.
Yeah.
When you see him face to face, he's just his balance, and what I said to you before, he was doing things one touch people would take 3 touches to do. And that real class. And then alongside them, I suppose I've got to put him in, haven't I? Really, is Gascoigne.
Colleague as well.
Well, I'm going to say, listen, he played for that lot, didn't he? He played for Rangers, and he scored. He scored a goal at Firhill, and I almost stood and applauded him. It was that good, right? He took a corner, and the guys, Charlie Miller, the Rangers plus, fired it at Gascoigne. I mean, he's fired it at him. Gascoigne's right at the corner of the box, and one of our players has went to close him down. He's one touch, flicked it over the lad's head, right? Flicked it over the lad's head, and he's half volleyed it. And as he's half volleyed it, he shouted, top left. And it's nestled in the top left-hand corner of the goal. And Ali McCoist was playing, and I could distinctly hear Ali McCoist saying, "Did he just call that? Did he just call?" Gascoigne's away. He's got the finger up. He's gone. Right.
I wonder if he.
I almost stood there and applauded. It's unbelievable.
I wonder if he ever shouted bottom right in the Euros.
But when he played, he'd just come back for Italy. He'd just come back for Lazio, and Walter Smith and Rangers had got him in a right good place. It was just before Euro '96. I played against him, and he was in outstanding form. Outstanding.
Did you have much involvement with him when he did come to Boston, Steve? Did you?
No, before my time.
Was it really?
Yeah, I remember. However, he played for Boston against Lincoln one evening at Boston in a reserve match, and I'm desperate to see him, what he was like. And the Boston lads had went out for the second half, and he was sat and he was shaking. He was in the dressing room and he was shaking. He had a can of Monster or Red Bull, and he was having a fag, right, in the dressing room. And I thought, really? And a few years earlier, I'd played against him, and he was just sensational. Just before Euro '96, we played him, and you know what he'd done in Euro '96, obviously. So, incredible. Again, one of those guys, you just couldn't get the ball off him. He's just so good. Anyway,
world class.
Yeah.
Centre forwards.
2. One you'll know instantly. The other one you may know if you know your lower league football. And I've put this in for a reason. First one's Henrik Larsson. Right.
Oh, what a player.
Right. Very much like Laudrup. Right. Very similar. Couldn't get anywhere near him. Right. He had balance, he had poise, he was quick, he was strong, he was 2-footed. He just had everything. He was good. I mean, for a small guy, he was good and he was brilliant in the air. And as a Celtic fan, he's obviously a legend to me. But to play against him, mate, him and Laudrup, by the way, I mean, it's like a fag paper between them as far as ability is concerned. They're that good.
Yeah.
And the last one is a name that you will not remember. And I've played against better players in this, but I found this guy very, very difficult to play against every time I played him. He's a guy called Chris Malkin. Now, Chris Malkin's not a name that jumps out at a lot of people. Chris played for Tranmere for quite a few years, and whoever else. but Chris was about 6'4". He was a big kind of Peter Crouch type figure, big, gangly, awkward. And I must have played against him, say, about half a dozen times and never had a good game against him. Never. I just couldn't, for whatever reason, just couldn't get a grip of him. He was just awkward. And a very, for me, a very difficult. I could never quite figure out how to play against him. I think we might have come off 50-50 on the odd occasions, but most of the time I was struggling to stay with him. I don't know why. He was a very awkward opponent. Good player, had a good career in the game, but I found him very difficult to play against. So,
and if you was going to name a captain out that side, Steve, who would you go for?
Goff.
And your choice of manager?
From the managers I've had, or any manager?
Managers you've had. Let's go managers you've had. Would it be the Ayr United one because of the coaching?
Minnie Monroe would be Minnie would be the coach, I think. I'm going to have to swing for Chris Turner, God rest his soul, at Peterborough. Right, very good manager of people. Right, knew a bit like John Lambie. Actually, if I put John Lambie and Paul Gascoigne together in the same room, it would be right? So I think Turns at Peterborough, for me, he was a real mentor to me. Turns helped me really in my career, really helped me. And I think he'd got that personality, he had that. He was a big man anyway, and he would have enough about him to work with that dressing room, no problems.
What a team!
Yeah.
Okay, what a team!
Yeah, lovely.
Did you know many of them ones cooks?
I know a few, yeah. Not all of them, but a few.
The ones who's on like a soccer aid team on FIFA, which is Schmeichel, Gascoigne, and Larson. Yeah. In fact, Loudon needs to be on that. Big fan. So that concludes this podcast. Obviously, it's been a long one. I think it's the longest one yet, but it's been worth it. No, it's been worth it, Steve. To be fair, we've touched on loads of things. You've got more experience than all the other guests we've had on, don't you? So you've got a birthday coming up soon, I see.
Next month.
Next month. So many happy returns for that. All we need to say now really is obviously to just thank you for coming on, giving up your time, and just sharing us sort of this is your life. It's been brilliant. Obviously, I like to reminisce about the past and hear the stories again because it just cracks me up, especially some of the ones which we can't physically put on the podcast, which you've told me, which will never probably get told in public. Cookie, anything from you before we wrap it up?
Sorry. I'm just going to ask the question that I ask everybody at the end. Just one bit of advice you'd give to a player, a younger player coming through right now. One bit of advice.
I'm going to be selfish, Cookie, and go with 2 bits of advice. All right? 2 bits of advice. Right? And I'll go back to what I said earlier on. Hard work will always beat talent when talent doesn't work hard, right? And the last bit for me is you're supposed to enjoy football. Football is supposed to be enjoyed. Please, 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 if you're a young player, please go and play with a smile on your face. Go and play with a smile on your face, because I say to everybody, everybody will find their level. It doesn't matter what level of football you play at, whether it's Sunday morning with your mates after a night in the lash, or whether it's professional. It doesn't matter. If you're enjoying your football, it's the best game in the world. It's the best game in the world. And if you're out there enjoying it, life doesn't get any better. You're a long time retired. Trust me, you're a long time retired. Just enjoy it, enjoy it, enjoy it. Play with a smile on your face.
100%. Totally agree. Cookie, obviously, Steve, on that first bit of advice, that's your slogan for the promo, yeah? Already, he's written it for you. You don't even have to think about it. Yeah, it's got to be get that in the headline. Put it in capital letters. So, Steve, thanks a lot, mate. You always used to sign off the programme notes, all the best.
All the best, aye.
All the best. Yeah, in your programme notes at Boston. So I think that's a fitting way to, sign off today. So, yeah, again, thank you so much for coming on and sharing your stories. So it's been Off Script. Until next time, we'll see you soon.